Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also don't forget to listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, creativity and consciousness. A passionate and inspiring artist, writer, public speaker, consultant, independent scholar, and visionary educator. He has over 4 decades of experience teaching and facilitating deep learning to a wide range of audiences. He is an award-winning artist and TEDx speaker. He has exhibited art throughout the United States, Japan, China. His art is in public and private collection, has been represented in galleries of Chicago, Seattle, Omaha, and Albuquerque. He holds black belts in karate do, and aikido, with decades of experience training and teaching Budo. His comprehension, experience, expertise, and synthesis of creativity and innovation is unparalleled. Founder and president of Satori Innovation, a consulting and ideation accelerator. Let's welcome to the show for the first time, Patrick Williams. That is an audience.
Yes. They look great too.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Paul.
And fellow artist.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
You are very, very welcome. So that's extensive. And some of your work is incredibly. And I've seen some of the sizes of the pieces that you have. It's like, whoa, that's a palette, man.
It's big, yes, indeed. I love when I have the space to do large, to really do large work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have two drawings that are 80 inches high and 25 feet long.
Whoa.
On paper.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
And I had a studio at the time in Seattle that I had a 55-foot long wall. So I could put that work up and just go wild with the pencil.
Yeah. And for those who want to check it out, who are listening or watching, definitely go check out his website at www.patrickwilliams.com.
Correct.
Very impressive.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So how did this journey start for you? What gave you the inspiration? How did you start in this art?
Well, what's interesting is that you spoke before the show of how kids would ask you to draw things, and that's essentially it. It's I liken it to when we're 8 years old and we're outside playing, like at recess at school. All of us know who the fastest runner is, right?
Yeah.
So it's whoever, like Johnny or whoever, right? So the same is true in a classroom of kids. And if you have to draw something, everybody knows they would turn to you, they would turn to me to draw something. So I was always drawing. This came up recently. My wife and I were speaking with someone, and she said, well, tell them about how you would get in trouble in school on purpose. So you would be put out in the hallway. I would be put out in the hallway and in my desk. And it was like, awesome. It's quiet. I can sit out here and draw anything that I wanted to draw. So I was always drawing as a kid, and at about age 10, I started to teach myself really how to draw. I was looking at things and attempting to draw them realistically. And I did that for a while, and then I started, as most or often kids experiment with surrealism, for a better term. I didn't know that's what it was called when I started doing it, but I
Yeah.
started to draw from my imagination. And then at about 14, 15 years old, I thought, wow, I could paint these drawings. Not the drawings, but I could take one of my drawings and make a painting out of it. And so I
Yeah.
started experimenting with that when I was in high school, and I've never stopped doing it since.
Yeah. It's amazing how the universe puts us in places and gives us these directions, and opportunities to hone in on our abilities and imagination.
Absolutely.
Mm, definitely a must. Um, so creativity and consciousness.
Mm,
Um, describe how creativity can be misplaced.
sure, that's a great question. I believe through observation and experience as a teacher, but also when I was a kid, seeing how some kids draw and some kids can't. Some kids can play the cello, some kids can't. Not necessarily that they can't, but they don't have that real desire. And as I grew and as I started to teach both martial arts and art, I was a visiting artist in school systems, and I was an artist in residence in different school systems around the country. I was really captivated by how some kids are really involved with creativity and some kids aren't. And it puzzled me. Why? And why was it so easy for me, and why is it so challenging for some people? And the more I looked at it, the more I realized, and the more reading I did in education uh, in general, and how children learn, in the psychology of learning, so to speak,
Yeah.
the more I developed this idea that our creativity, it can't go anywhere. It's inside of us. As you know, as children, we're super creative.
Hmm.
And it does get misplaced. Kids nowadays, and less so for you and I when we were kids, uh, they are so busy, and they have screens as a distraction for sure now.
Oh,
The last 20 years or so.
yeah.
So so it's more of kids run out of time, in a way, for their creative out outputs and outlooks and experiences. We're we're causing a huge amount of emphasis on academics in the school systems over the creative parts of our humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm not discounting academics. Academics are important. They're necessary. They're interesting. There's too much weight on that side of the scale. It's almost as if they've taken the two parts of the scale, and they just removed the arts from the scale, and it's just all academic. And
Yeah.
and there's a lot of emphasis on testing, standardized testing, which have I'm not a fan of standardized testing.
Mm.
There's not much use of it. The uses are more connected with how well you do on standardized tests, or
Yeah.
how where you land in the spectrum of class. And so I'm I'm a fan of a balance of creativity and academics. I think they feed well with each other. They give each other benefits that aren't acknowledged, in a way, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm attempting to bring those acknowledgments out. So children in general lose lose their time frames for creativity, for play, and using their imaginations.
Hmm.
And once that starts to happen, I call that creative colonization. We're literally uh, pushed away from our creative natures internally by the demands that classrooms and social structures and family put on us as children when we were
Yeah.
children and when children are children now.
Yeah.
So once that starts, there's a kind of there's a moment. It might be just inertia, and or it could be a single moment. I've spoken to lots of people who say it was my third grade teacher, and he or she said this, and I stopped playing an instrument. I stopped drawing. I stopped singing. I stopped dancing. Whatever it might be, it
Yeah.
was a hard stop,
Wow.
and I call that creative collapse. And once that happens, then kids may not get back to their creativity. And that's where the misplacement happens. They just put it on a shelf and somewhat forget about it
Yeah.
to various degrees. Sometimes it's a really intense amnesia, creative amnesia, so to speak. And sometimes it's not so distant from someone. Let's say I was really into music when I was a kid, and my third grade teacher or my fourth grade teacher, or whatever grade, said, you can't play the saxophone.
Mm.
That's horrible." So I never touched the saxophone again, but I still remained interested in jazz or in classical music or whatever it might be. So I was still a little bit connected to creativity and in some ways my creativity, but it was at a distance. It wasn't embodied in me anymore.
Yeah.
As an example, but that doesn't mean that we can't get back to that part of us that is natural. It's innate. We all have it.
Yeah. Unlocking it. And I've also noticed that there's certain times that art can help in other areas
Oh,
of
absolutely.
academics. I used it in math. I used the creativity in math by associating colors with particular formulas in trigonometry when it came to
That's
electrical
super.
circuits and stuff like that. It was like,
That's
okay, I got to
super. I
find a
love
way to
that.
remember, and it was just a way to remember
Totally.
certain things.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
yeah, it's it's like sometimes we have to be creative.
Yes,
We can't
yes.
take everything too seriously.
True. Absolutely. Yeah. I, I describe I describe two kinds of creativity in 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 ways. There's generalized creativity and then there's specialized creativity. And we often think only of specialized creativity, which is art,
Mm,
dance, music, architecture, theater, poetry, whatever, painting,
yeah,
all sculpture, all the fine arts. We tend as a culture only think of them as creative. But I believe that there's generalized creativity. There's the creativity that we use day in, day out. Choosing the shirt that I'm wearing to speak with you was a little bit of generalized creativity. It's not like choosing, who to put in a painting
yeah,
or how to compose a symphony. That's specialized. But generalized creativity, we use it all the time. We think of, well, I'm thinking about grilling tonight, maybe steaks or shrimp or something, and then thinking of how I want to spice it up. That's generalized creativity. As opposed to a chef who's working in a three-star Michelin, restaurant, they are using specialized creativity
yeah,
and obviously also generalized creativity. So creativity is everywhere and we use it all the time. And it takes practice uh, acknowledging the generalized creativity more so people get used to saying, you know what, I am creative. I do have that quality to me. Everybody has it, but
yeah,
how
yeah,
much do they use it is the issue.
yeah.
Maybe not the issue, but it's certainly important. I believe it's important.
Very, very. I
Yeah,
mean, it makes life interesting.
it
It
does.
it's yeah. um, describe what creative colonization is.
Sure. It took me a while to find a term that I thought was significant in describing how harsh the experience children go through with respect to not having the time to be creative, to be playful, and be inside their imagination. And I thought one years ago, one day, I thought, wow, it's sort of like being colonized.
Mm,
How how a culture somewhere on the planet, people came and they took away all their foundational relationships to living. They took away their art, they took away their language, they took away their traditions, they took away their rituals. That is colonization. And I felt like that was very similar to what happens, especially in education, in school systems, is children are colonized. They're, there's an occupying force picking on academia, on
yeah.
academics. Academics push, they colonize, they are the invading group that comes in the math class, the reading class, the English class, the whatever the class is at these ages, and especially around 6, 7, 8 years old. Those are very invading forces for a child, because the child learns through play, creativity, and imagination.
Mm,
This is a well-known quality of the psychology of learning, that
yeah.
it is through our play and through our creativity and learning that we actually, through our play, creativity, and imagination, that we learn. So as children, we're coming into school, even if even in preschool, but especially kindergarten and first and second, third grade, we're coming to school full of our, in a way, our first language of learning, right? Our first
Yeah.
language of learning since we were even prenatal. Prenatally, we're starting to put the world together in sounds and motion and such. And but especially once we're born, we start to explore the world with our imagination and our creativity and our play, and then we start to learn and learn and learn. We're accelerant learners when we're young,
Yeah.
and that gets pushed away, and it's as an invading force enters the psyche of little kids, and they don't know what else to do. It's like, well, all I can do is do the math, and all I can do is do the reading. And not that those are bad. I'm not saying those are bad. Those are really
Yeah.
good things. But when it's to the exclusion of play, imagination, and creativity, it's not a good combination.
Yeah. It seems like the education system anywhere in general,
Mm.
it kind of it's loaded up. You're loaded up with a rush of over sensory.
Hmm.
Especially kindergarten, first and
Sure.
second, third grade. You get the hand painting and you get the coloring and you get, you're overloaded, sensory overload with all of this cool creative stuff. And then suddenly, you know, now you're hit with the books
Mm.
and it's almost like you're forced to get all that creativity pushed out. And yeah, we should keep art in schools.
Yes, absolutely, across the board.
Yeah.
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 So did what this is a question. We had it, and we had it, I think it was only, my memory is only square dancing. And this would maybe be shocking to, younger listeners,
Yeah.
but we had dance in elementary school. Did you have dance?
I think so.
Okay.
I remember some class. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough, we had a wild AP English teacher, uh, and he had taught Arthur Murray dancing when he was young, and he
Wow.
would spend 2 weeks. We would move all the chairs and tables out of the way, and he would teach us how to dance, literally how to tango and jitterbug and all the old school dances,
Yeah.
which was exquisite, fabulous. But
Yeah.
so my point is that dance is one of the things, one of the fine arts that is eliminated super quickly. Hardly any regular
Mhm.
elementary, junior high, and high school class uh, curricula have dance as a regular program.
Hmm. Now
Well,
I have noticed too that, locally
mm,
that there's, like, dance schools opening up, you've
nice.
got the Claremont, Academy of Dance or the Lake County Academy of Dance, or you have these other outside, influencers out there that are trying to
Sure,
keep that in the system, but it's now, for parents or for families that can't afford that is definitely a
true.
disadvantage.
Yep, exactly. Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's a wild, crazy situation with our educational system,
yeah,
be that as it may, if it is actually an educational system. I'm very critical of that, and
Oh,
not to
same
and
here, yeah.
yeah, and it's not. I have the greatest respect for teachers.
Mhm,
It is simply the frameworks in which uh, education is being designed, so to speak,
yeah,
that is not functional anymore at optimal. There's
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
more things that can
definitely not
be,
optimized.
yeah, that
Yeah.
can be done for sure.
And the same thing with martial arts. I mean,
Oh,
you
for
being in
sure.
martial arts and stuff, it's like, I've never known them teaching any martial arts in public school. You had
Yeah,
to seek it outside
right, right.
of
And I
that.
think it would be I literally think it would be a fabulous part of a PE program.
Mhm,
It doesn't have to be extensive, and it can be done safely. When I
yeah.
was teaching years ago, a lot, I taught. I didn't take. They had to be 6 years old. The kids did, and by that time they have a little bit more body awareness.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but it is super, super positive, with a good program, good teacher, I think it's super useful.
I've noticed a couple schools too. One of my, the late Reverend Ben Cox, one of my teachers in
Mm,
mediumship and stuff, he started teaching in public school meditation,
nice.
and, I think they do this in other countries too. They just have, you should have the option instead of PE, go and meditate.
Yeah, super useful, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Know thyself. Yeah,
Lose the stress.
yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Describe, you mentioned something on, within your work, creative tension.
sure, yeah, that's super important. So and and I'm using it in a positive sense. So, we need a kind of tension in our process, in some regards, our process of living. We need tension, and there's there's a story within. Remember, this was years ago. There was a a lab that was created to simulate the experiences that astronauts would have if they went to Mars. Do you remember that program? It was in Arizona.
Yeah.
Huge building, many square feet of maybe a couple thousand. Oh, maybe it was way more than that. It was a huge building that they built, and
Yeah.
part of it was they were mimicking building. They were mimicking the building of greenhouses on Mars, what they would have to
Oh,
do,
the bio.
and yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And after about 8 months, all their saplings had died,
Oh,
and no one could figure it out. They had plenty of water, plenty of sunshine, they had fertilizer, all the they were generating it inside the dome. And they finally talked to an old arborist, and he said, "Well, there's no wind." And they
mm,
were like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Trees need wind. Plants need wind. It's called stress wood. So when the little sapling is blowing in the wind, it's actually building up its strength and its stamina and endurance.
yeah.
And so this is uh, the same as our creative tension.
Mm,
We need a kind of tension. When you were in school and you were given an assignment, there was a kind of tension there. Part of it is because you have a deadline, and
yeah.
even in the workplace, there's that tension. That's a creative tension that exists within deadlines. If they're in a design firm, or also in my studio, I have a show coming up in June, so in July, I mean. And so I have a new kind of tension to get work done. So
Yeah.
that's one aspect of the creative tension. But there's another aspect of the creative tension that's very powerful and very interesting, that we need things to push up against. So the dancer has gravity in the floor. The musician has either air or strings or the drum or the piano keys. There's a tension there, a literal physical tension there. I have brushes and canvas or paper and pencil. There needs to be a kind of tension there. If we take the tension away, then there's nothing that we can literally push up against. We
Mm,
need these. We need, just like the sapling needs the wind to push up against to develop their stress wood. We need that creative stress wood within us, that the tension provides. And what's interesting is that I've come across lots of folks, and in some ways more recently, where there's a resistance to tension. There's
yeah.
there's a desire to have things easy. And circle back to the meditation part. Meditation, there's a saying that my wife taught me. She went to Naropa
Mm,
and got her master's in transpersonal psychology, and they said the seat of meditation is through revulsion, something like that. That may not be
yeah.
exactly it. So as you know, I've done meditation. There are times when it is really hard to get to the cushion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, "Oh my god, am I gonna have to sit here?
Uh,
Oh, I can't do it today." But the revulsion is part of what gets you there. So that's sort of the creative tension within the meditation world, that sometimes it's really hard to get to the cushion. Sometimes it's really hard to get to the canvas. Sometimes it's really difficult to get to the dance floor for the rehearsal or the choreography that you're going to start to develop.
yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard to get to the page. I'm I'm trying to be a writer in a way. I am a writer, but I'm not. I'm still. I think all writers struggle, as my wife says.
Mm,
So that is so intense sometimes, to sit in front of the blank page and to get the words going. That's the creative tension. There's a hard part of creative tension, and then there's the necessary, almost delightful part of
mm,
having the wooden floor to jump off of as the creative tension for the choreographer.
yeah.
So that's, does that make sense in some ways? Is
Yes.
it okay?
Yes.
Good,
Yeah,
excellent.
you need that ebb and flow. You need that push and pull.
Yes,
Need that yin and yang, the,
yeah,
light and
totally.
dark, that yeah, yeah, I get it.
Right,
I
good,
get it. Yeah,
super.
especially when it comes to deadlines. I mean,
Yes,
I'm definitely guilty of, those projects and, final the final piece of that portfolio and it's due tomorrow and you've had 3 weeks to do it and
Right.
you wait to the last night
Yeah.
because that tension
That tension. Right.
assisted you to become even more creative because now
Totally.
your best work comes out.
Right. Totally. Often. Yeah. It's
Very off. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It is.
Until you
It
get
is.
writer's block and you're just sitting there looking at that blank page going, "What
Yeah.
the hell am I
Boy.
gonna write?"
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Um, Now when it comes to, like, consciousness, or
Mm.
human consciousness, or even collective consciousness, what are your thoughts on, art and our consciousness
Yeah.
and the role it plays?
Massive question. I believe, fundamentally, I believe that consciousness supersedes our bodies.
Mm,
So there are lots of people who are, and I'm sure your audience will be familiar with the folks that are materialists or staunch materialists, epiphenomenalists. They call sometimes they're called. So they only think that consciousness happens inside of our brains through a chemical electric reactions.
yeah.
And I love having a brain. Brains are awesome,
Mhm.
but I don't think that they are the the place where consciousness comes into existence. And because of that belief, and to me it's also a kind of knowledge, and based on evidential experience through my life
Mm,
of having visions, having dreams that are extra somethings, those
yeah,
dreams that aren't just quite a dream, they're more having this connection to a kind of consciousness that is explained better through an expansive quality of consciousness rather than just consciousness from my brain.
yeah,
I think there's a remarkable, not understood interconnection that our brains and our bodies, I think more so our bodies, because we have uh, neuron like parts to our digestive system and our
mm,
heart. So there's a lot more going on with consciousness in our whole body and extending out from our body. So coming back to kind of the first part of the question, I believe our creativity is both very singular personality wise to who I am and who you are and who other people who are in the realm of specialized creativity for sure, but also generalized creativity.
yeah,
But we have also a connection to larger qualities of consciousness. I don't have any real definitions of that. There are lots of different definitions of some people call it God, some people call it prana, some people, there's all kinds of names, all kinds of uh, judgments and
yeah,
differentiations and labels. But
yeah,
I know that there is something greater than me that sometimes I'm in real remarkable harmony with that.
mm,
When that idea pops in, oh, I don't can't really say it was just me that came up with that idea, but I was part of it, and it started to happen, and I'm following that. And that's
yeah,
part of what I think artists do, is that we've gotten used to the parameters of how to follow something, a creative idea.
yeah,
Like, oh, there it is. I'm going to follow that. I'm going to keep following it until I either get some other message to follow something else, or I just create it and then I go on to the next thing. But I
yeah,
think that there obviously is a remarkable connection between creativity and consciousness. And I think we as human beings have a very limited awareness of what consciousness actually is. I think. I
Hmm.
think. I think there's a lot of us. You're in this realm of people who are open to a lot of possibilities and are following those and tuning into those possibilities rather than as picking on the materialists who say, well, it's just brain, and if you have an intuition or what you think is telepathy, that's just a coincidence.
Mm.
And in my book, it it is statistically impossible for there to be so many coincidences every single day in every single person's life to call them coincidences anymore. That's
Yeah.
not the definition of a coincidence. A coincidence is something that happens every once in a while, and it's like, oh, that was interesting. But
Yeah.
our lives are full of remarkably quirky, strange, phenomenal, fabulous
Synchronicities.
events, synchronicities. Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
consciousness and creativity tight, super linked, I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same here. I
Yes.
concur.
Yeah. I knew I was preaching to the choir.
Yeah. So before we wrap up the show, too, is how can people find you? Where they can go to reach out to you and um,
People I Yes, people can find me, people can email me at patrick@patrickwilliams.com. I'd love to hear from people. You can visit my website, as you mentioned, patrickwilliams.com. I have another website. It's called
mm,
celebrationflowerpaintings.com. It has nature work on there also, so it's not just flowers. I have a business consulting site called Patrick Williams Stay Creative, which is a mouthful, but there are links in other parts of my other sites. I'm also on Instagram. PMW Creativity is my. I do a drawing every morning in my journal,
yeah,
and then I post it on Instagram. And I have PMW under slash camera is my photography. I post a photo every day.
sweet,
Yeah.
cool,
And I think I have 2,500 drawings on the site.
wow,
So it's one drawing every day, and
yeah,
it's just the single. I make one in the morning, and then I post it. So
yeah,
it's the sort of a continuous string of that part of creativity that's
yeah.
spontaneous and fresh and new each day.
Huh, that's cool. And with that many, I'm surprised you didn't get like have it in the morning newspaper or something like that.
Well, yeah,
Kind of like the Far Side,
it
Far
could
Side
be. That would
Comics.
be interesting. That's a great idea. I love that idea.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So before we end the show, what would you like to offer as a takeaway for our guests, or not
Sure,
our
that's a
guests,
great.
but our
I
audience?
love that. I would, if you want to begin exploring restoring your creativity, I would suggest get a journal. Journals are good anyway. And
Hmm.
to write in your journal every day as a practice with a capital P. But if you wanting you're interested in reconnecting with your creativity, use a journal to begin asking yourself questions. How was I creative when I was a kid? What did I like to play when I was a kid? How did I use my imagination as a kid? What am I interested now in doing artistically? You don't have to become, you don't have to write a symphony if
Hmm.
you want to start playing the piano. So keep it in scale, but start to explore, ask yourself questions, and the creativity is going to come out. We were unstoppable in our creativity when we were children.
Yeah,
When we woke up during the summer, we went outside and we played. Well, you did, I did, and hopefully there were kids now that do that too, but
Hopefully some left.
yeah, somewhere, some child is outside playing right now. I'm
Yeah.
happy about that. But anyway, journal, journal about your creativity. Ask yourself questions, and that's going to help you get back into it.
Yeah. And when you said going outside, nature,
Yeah, nature.
getting back to nature is just
Yeah,
something that will also
big,
just
biggest
really
teacher.
unlock.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
watch my TEDx talk.
Definitely, definitely,
Yeah,
and they can find
creativity
that
lost and found. Yes,
on YouTube or on
yes,
your
YouTube.
website?
Yeah,
Cool,
and it's
cool.
linked on my sites also.
Oh, alright.
Yeah,
Sweet.
nature is involved.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why it made me think of the plug. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you, Paul.
Cool. You're very, very, very welcome. Patrick, namaste, my friend.
Namaste. Thank you, Paul. It was great. Great
You're very,
questions. Yeah.
very welcome. And we'll have all your information too in the show notes. And for those, again, check out um, Patrick's work at patrickwilliams.com. And yeah, that concludes our show. I do appreciate it. Thank you again, Patrick. And thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. We will see you next time.